So how does this simulation work under the hood? Well, all of these things up here are just constants, just numbers that I've assigned particular letters to. So mimic happens to be a 2. And I'm going to use this to refer to when I need to use the mimic behavior down below. All of these are just set up for what are you going to do during each of the different rounds. And these are all set up for what are the top and bottom ranges of the simulation going to be. So I've created a two-dimensional array. You can kind of think of this like a table where all the race decisions for each of the players are filled in, what their totals are going to be, and what the text is going to be for the results. This is all for just drawing the actual grid, the colors we're going to use. This is the player's starting speeds, their x and y position within the graph, which section they're in, because I've divided up the race into different sections where we recalculate their speeds, what place they're in, and whether they were tested or caught. So the setup is all of the initial things that you would expect. So whatever the player decisions were in the first round, fill those in the array. Arrays always start at 0 and then go up through 9. So we always start counting at 0 rather than 1. The different strategies are set up here, and then based on those strategies, it fills in all the race decisions. So this one actually does the random thing where it does a random chance which decision it's going to make. So it either dopes or not. Mimics, always doping, and then we fill in other color values. Do the race setup where we check to see who was caught, and we have a delay there at the beginning after the testing shows up. The actual drawing is based on whether or not you're in the graph section where you show all the results or whether you're in the racing section. So notice here, if you're in the graph, then it's actually just doing a whole bunch of stuff where you're drawing the table. So fill in with black, you draw in all the lines for the graph, and then you basically go through all of the racing totals, what their numbers were and what their decisions were on each of the stages, and draws the text in corresponding to that. So if I was doping, what was the score I got? This is actually just drawing all of the table. And it's doing this with loops where it's just going through and going, okay, do player 1, player 2, player 3, player 4, so on. And then there's a few labels at the end of that. If you're in the race, then we do the race setup, and then we actually do the racing here. So this is setting up the lanes. This is the delays for whether or not they were drug tested. So this is the delay, so you get a chance to see that. This is on the mark, the get set, go, so just the delay so you can actually see this text. And then here is where you're actually drawing where they're located in the race. And then down here is where we actually go check for the changes in speed. So if they get through a quarter of the race, we recheck their speed. If they're going through half, 3/4, finals, so all of these things have to do with retesting their speed. The idea being that if you are doping, and you just happen to get a bad random number, if you sample more often, it's going to get closer to more median value. So this shows whether or not they got caught, and this draws the actual players themselves, whether they're in a red color or a black color, the circle that goes around them, so that you can tell as the person running the simulation what's going on. And then when you get to the end of the race, you actually update all of their scores. So did you get first place, second place, third place, fourth place, so on. Hopefully that gives you an idea of how the prisoner's dilemma simulation works.